doing, everybody? Well, all right. Now we're going to talk about housing. Housing is a human right.
Yeah, it is.
You have a right to housing. Everyone has a right to housing. I don't know anyone who shouldn't have a right to housing in this country, in this beautiful province of British Columbia. Isn't it beautiful today?
Yeah.
All right. Yes. Yeah. Well, it's beautiful for the people that are housed, right? That's great. I mean, you got a roof over your head. What about the people who don't have housing? Right? That's, it's just wrong. I mean, we put animals in housing. I mean, they live in shelters. I mean, why do humans have a right to housing? I mean, you should be given enough money to basically put a roof over your head. When there's not enough money, what happens? Well, you become homeless. I mean, how can that happen in Canada, become homeless? There's many reasons why a person can become homeless, but I'm talking about housing though, because housing, if you don't have housing, you become homeless, right? You can be priced out. There's many reasons being priced out of housing. Housing is not a commodity. It should not, it's a gentrification. And big developers come along and they push their way through cities throughout the country and they get what they want. The cities will sign off on it. They'll basically give them an incentive to build non-affordable housing, right? So they start building skyscrapers everywhere and they say, well, yeah, we're gonna bulldoze down a whole community because, hey, we want to have that grid. Well, what about people on low-income housing? They live in there, that's all they can afford. So next thing you know it, you get all these big developers coming in and they're gonna start buying out the small landlords. Well, hey, money talks, right? I mean, someone offers them like $10 million or $100 million. I mean, sure. I mean, just for a small little property, are they going to say no? I mean, they should. They should say no, because that's been bullying. That's bullying their way into the community. And as long as we as society allow that to happen, it's going to continue to happen. I mean, the cities say, oh, well, I read something in Vancouver. Oh, they can build all these skyscrapers along, right? Well, we're going to allow them to come back in and they're going to still pay the same rent that they paid in a low-income housing in some new luxury condominium. Are you kidding me? That's not going to happen. I wasn't born yesterday. I've seen rents going up since I was a little kid. All the way up. Rents never go backwards. They keep going up. They're not going to come back down. I mean, if they do, there'll just be some kind of incentive to get you in there. And how can you afford like over $2,000, $3,000 a month? I mean, people on low income, they're seniors, low income individuals, people on disability assistance, they used to be called pensions, but then the government changed it to assistance. Well, how can that be? I mean, it's like seniors, you get a guaranteed income supplement, right? It's a flat amount. So that needs to be changed, but that's something that we're going to work on also. But regardless of that, people should be having enough money to pay for the housing. If they're given $375, it's been frozen for 15 years, people. Imagine that, 15 years. 15 years, 1 month. So the clock keeps ticking. Now, maybe back in 1980, you could probably rent a place for $375. Now you look at a luxury condo, you're looking over $2,000 for a one bedroom if you're lucky. Maybe an old apartment, I mean, they're built way back in 1950s, 1960s. They're charging $1,650. The place where I live right now, $1,650 for a one bedroom. That's right, one bedroom, not two bedroom, one bedroom, right? Purple bathtub, pink bathtub, blue bathtub, you name it, green. Take your flavor, take your picture of the color that you want. Yeah, it's pretty retro, right? But is it worth that price? No. It all comes down to the price gouging of what these landlords want to charge. And the sky's the limit. They're just going to charge what they want. And it prices people out. They can't afford, their incomes don't go higher. So ends up, what happens is you end up being on the street, or you end up going, maybe trying to do some couch surfing with people, like into a place. And it's not always accessible to people. Maybe that kind of housing doesn't suit the other person's need. Then that comes down to an accessibility issue when it comes to housing, because people don't always get along with other people in that kind of housing. I mean, if you are if you're a wheeler in a scooter, right? They call them wheelers, right? Not wheelchair users. They're called wheelers. And wheelers, I mean, mean, they need to have that kind of housing to actually get their wheelchair through that door. So any new development, yeah, it actually works, but you get the older type of apartments, you can't get actually that scooter through there, right? So what it comes down to now, that's not accessible housing. People now can't afford to get into that housing, so now they're stuck. Do they get into like social housing? So now we're going to move on to social housing. Wow, there's a long waiting list for that. You're looking at least 10 years. 10 plus years, people. 10 plus years. Is that acceptable? No, I don't think so either. Right? And of course, you can't just get into accessible housing. Someone lives in market housing. You know, you live in a place that's been built for many years. You're comfortable living there, but you can't afford to live there anymore because the landlord now refuses to basically fix up the place. Well, they'll say, oh, well, I'm the landlord. I'm going to fix up my unit first before I fix up your unit. But hey, I'll fix up your unit once you move out. Well, I'm not moving out. Well, they want to get you out because they want to make more money on your unit. So they can jack up the price. So say you're grandfathered in and you're paying, say, I don't know, somebody's paying $790 way back, maybe 15, 20 years ago, right? Okay, so now that same unit goes to $1,650 or maybe $1,800, right? Over double the price. So getting back to the social housing aspect is that people say, well, gee, I want to get into social housing because I can actually pay cheaper rent. Well, is it cheaper? No. They're going to go to people who are unhoused. Maybe their place has been sold or it's been condemned. There's so many reasons why, right? And they prioritize those people to get into that housing. Is it any better? No. That kind of housing is actually quite old, decrepit in many cases. You get people that have different health issues that need to be dealt with, that the government is not focused at 100% in dealing with that situation. Yes, they've done a lot in different ways. There's a lot more they can do in that kind of situation for mental health issues. I know they have wraparound supports that they're working on, okay? But the other people, they don't always fit in with that kind of people, like other people in that kind of housing. And they shouldn't have to choose to be in the housing, quartered all into one kind of housing because that's what the government says. No, people should be able to live in the kind of housing that they want to live in, right? They shouldn't have to choose, well, the government says, well, you want that housing, you gotta be here. You want that housing, you gotta be here. So people with disabilities, for instance, right? So I'll give you an example. So if you're in low-income housing, okay, so you pay your income is based on tied to the rent, okay. So, but in market housing, you get $375. So now, well, you have to actually choose food, pay your bills, buy your medication, pay for any other expenses related to your disability. What do you got left? You got to choose. Always choose. You should never have to choose in life. So that you get into the other kind of housing, well, yeah, you might have more income, but now you're in a different situation where you don't want to be in, right? It's all about control. And who wants to be controlled in their life? Well, having visitors coming over when the property management, who basically runs that property, who says you can only have a visitor coming over for 2 weeks, or you can stay with you, maybe it's a relative or something that wants to stay with you, but you can only stay for 2 weeks out of a whole year. Or maybe it's a friend who became homeless and says, hey, can I crash at your place? Well, yeah. For 2 weeks out of a whole year, you can do that. And what happens if they stay longer? Well, now you're evicted. You lose your home because you're trying to do the right thing to try and help somebody out. But hey, you can have cheaper rent. You know, there's always all these reasons why that kind of housing, it doesn't always suit everybody's needs. And again, like, how did we get to this spot in life? It coming down to people having to make harsh decisions. It's a fundamental right when it comes to housing. And like, this has to stop. Like, a government playing disabled people against disabled people, low-income people against low-income people. Oh, if you have lots of money, you can live in that skyscraper, but hey, somebody low income, but I want to live in there. I'm sorry, you can't live in there because, well, we want you to live comfortably. And I've had that happen. 7, 8 times. I went to go and do an application. Hey, I want to live in there. The place wasn't brand new. It was built back in the 2000s. One was built back in 1990s, late 1990s. I saw the place getting built in the community that I lived in. Yeah, that's right. I saw it getting built, and I thought, well, maybe one day down the road, who knows, I'd love to live in there. So I go and apply. I can pay my rent. I've always paid my rent on time. Never missed a payment in my life. Very responsible tenant. I apply. Oh, I'm sorry, we have to reject your application. Why? Because we want you to live comfortably. Why? I can pay my rent. Yeah, but we want you to basically making $4,500 a month. That's right, $4,500 a month to live in a place that the rent is $1,510. $1,510. Okay, so I split the rent with my roommate. Okay, so now we both pay what, $750, I guess, around there, 760 or something like that. I can't think off the top of my head, but anyway, you get the point. Is that I can still pay the rent, but they won't allow me to pay that rent because they want me to have my income over double. And I said, well, how do I do that? Well, ask the government for more money. Are you kidding me? Ask the government for money. Well, if that was the case, people would already have a choice of living like where they want to live, right? It makes no darn sense. Okay, so they say, well, live comfortably. I mean, live like a king, live like a queen. Well, should we all have to basically be like that because that's what some company actually dictates? Actually, just so people know, that is against the law. They can't actually discriminate against people to rent. And so they, oh, well, we checked your references. Well, no, they didn't. I actually talked to my management. They never even called. They lied, and they wasted my time. They wasted my management's time. And the government is just appalled because they didn't say, well, we didn't know what was going on here. Are you kidding me? Of course they knew what was going on. They knew darn well what was going on because they're allowing that kind of stuff going on with corporations to get a way of choosing who they want to rent to and who they don't want to rent to. I mean, that is a right to housing. That is a human right, and we need to stand as society and stand up to these bullies and tell them enough is enough, and we have to stop that kind of action, like action in a very, very negative way, because it impacts people in communities. They should be able to live where they want to and not have to keep choosing of housing versus no housing. Since last time I checked, we are Canadian citizens. We need to be respected as Canadian citizens. So thank you very much, everyone. And that concludes my speech for today. I just want to give you guys an educational aspect of what housing is all about. And we need to now stand up to the politicians at every level, municipal, up to provincial, up to federal, and we need to say we have a right to housing, and we need to have a right to live in the kind of housing that we want, that we can afford. If we can't afford it, then they need to be providing it because it's a human right, correct? Yeah. Yay! Thank you.
What do we want?
What do we want?
Housing!
Housing, yes.
We want it
Now! All right.